Hello everyone, welcome back to the Python programming course. This is chapter number 3, which is data structures. So data structures is the most important chapter for all the software engineers out there. So you need to know your data structures no matter if you are preparing for competitive coding, for example, solving algorithm and data structure problems. And you also need it for designing a software, so in software engineering practices. Data structures is really important to understand, how to implement the algorithm. Data structure is the first step. Which data structure to use, how to implement it, when, which data structure can be used is something that you are going to learn in this chapter. So the first data structure that we are going to start with is strings. Now I decided to ditch the slides for a second because I think it would be much beneficial for us to learn strings through the editor itself. Okay, so what is strings? If you have been watching my videos and if you have watched the previous video on variables, then you already have an idea about what strings are. So strings are basically a collection of characters, and it can have anything from alphabets, numbers, alphanumeric values. Anything inside a quote or a double quote is considered a string in Python. Okay, so how do you define strings? So if you can define strings using variable name, and then here I have single quotes and then the name. Okay, and whatever you want to put inside those single quotes is going to be your string. So here I have a variable name, which is name, and then I have this big long string with me. Okay. So the first thing that we are going to look at is how do we calculate the length of the string? So in Python, there is a simple function that we can use. So for example, you can do len, which is length, and then in the parenthesis, you have to give the name of the string variable. So here I have name. Okay. So this is how you calculate the length of the string. Now let's check what is the length of this long string. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a print, and then I'm going to add this inside my print statement, and I will say length of name is. So I'm just printing length of name is, and then I'm printing the length of the string. So if I go ahead and execute this, it says the length of name is 44. So this particular string is 44 characters. Now, one thing about string that you need to know is it is actually divided. So each character in a string is given an index. So similar to how you read suppose you read a textbook or you read a book, then you have those chapters and you have page numbers assigned to them. It is similar to that. So here in the string, every the counting, the indexes start from 0. Okay, so here this P is 0 index. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So if you count everything, it should come up to 43. Why 43? The length of the string is 44 because there are 44 characters in it. But if you start from 0, the last index is going to be 43 because you start from 0, you don't start from 1. You always have to keep that in mind whenever you are looping through the strings or handling some string conditions, so that you do not run into out of stack or string length problems. All right, so this is how you calculate the length of the string. Let's move on to the next thing that we want to learn is how to access the characters in the string. Now we know that there are indexes in the string. So each character has an index. Now, how do we access them? Correct? So if say I want to access the first element of the string, what can I do? So simply what I have to do is I can write the name of the string and then square bracket and then specify the index of the string. So here, if I want to get the first character from the string, I'll say name of 0. Now, if I try to print this, so I do print. So I say first character in string and I do name of 0. If I print this out, you can see that First character in string is P basically. Okay. Now, suppose I want to say let me get this name from here for easy reference. Okay. So the first character here is P. Now, what if I want to get R, right? So I'll just check 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So R is the 12th character. So I can say if I write 12 here and I execute it, you can see it now prints R. This is incorrect because I did not modify this message, but you get the gist, right? Whichever index, whichever character that you want to get, you can just specify the index of that character. Now, there's one more thing that you need to know about this. So if you want to get the last element, last character in the string, there is an easier way to do it. So what you can do is you can have -1. So in strings, in Python strings, -1 is the last character, -2 is the second last character, -3 is the third last character, -4 is the fourth last, and so on. Okay, so if I do here -1 and I say last character in the string, and I go ahead and execute this, you'll see that last character in the string is E, which is correct. Correct. And then if you want to say get the, I want to say, I want to get the second last character. So I can do -2 and then it is going to return me S, which is the second last character in the string. So this is how you can access the characters in a string. In Python, there is something called string slicing. That means that you can get a subset of the string and you can do it using playing around with the indexes that we have. Okay, so slicing works something like this. You have a string name and then you provide a start, a colon, and then end. So this start and end are basically the indexes of those characters. Now remember that the start should always be less than or equal to the end, or it can be empty. And here the end is exclusive. So for example, what do I mean by that? Let me show you a simple example. Now I have name here, and if I decide to print name, and I want to slice it. So what I want to do is I want to only get pseudocoder from this whole string. So what I'm going to do is square brackets. I want to start from 0. So because 0 is the start of the string and pseudocoder starts from 0, so 0. And then I want to provide the end. So what is the end character? So if I count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Correct? So I count 10. Now, when I said the end index is exclusive, that means it is going to not count that index. So if we provide 10, it is only going to get 9 characters from it. So it is going to do -1. So if I go ahead, I forgot the count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'll show you. So if I say 10 and I print this, you see that it only prints pseudocode. It dropped this R. So in order, so the end index here is exclusive. So whenever you want to include the string, the end should be n+1. The index of the end should be index +1, whichever index that you want to have. So here, if I do 11 and I execute it, it says pseudocoda. Okay, so this is how you can splice the string. Now, there are two things actually. So one thing is, what if you want to get everything from the start and then you want to end at a particular point? So how you can do that? You can do that using, so what you have to do is you do not have to specify anything before the colon. What does that mean? That means everything before the colon is going to get considered. So it is going to be the start of the string. So if I go ahead and execute this, it is going to be, initially it was 0, which meant start of the string. And here nothing and colon, that is also going to mean start of the string. So if I go ahead and execute this, you can see it still prints pseudocoder. Now, what if you know the start of the string, you know the index of the string, start of the string that you want, but you do not actually know the end and you do not care. You just want something from this index till the end of the string. So what do? You can do the opposite here. So you can do, suppose I have to say, I can specify 0, or I can, specify something like 12. And in the end, I can just leave it as it is. So this means that it is going to start counting from the 12th character and it is going to go to the end of the string. If I go ahead and execute this, you can see that it started counting from the 12th character and then it printed the whole string. So this is string slicing. There are three ways to execute it. You can provide start and end. Keep in mind, end is exclusive. End is not, uh, counted. It is always going to be index -1 for the end. Then if you want something to start from the start of the string and go till a particular character, you can have empty colon and then the end character. Otherwise, if you have just the start of the string and you want to go till the end and you do not care what the end is, then you just specify the start of the character colon and then you can keep this empty. So that's all about string slicing. The next thing that we want to look at is how to reverse a string in place. Okay, so this becomes really handy if you are working with a, very complex algorithm and you do not want to go through the string and then just reverse every element in it. There is a very, very simple way of reversing a string in Python. All you have to do is you have to write the name of the string, which is this, and then you have to provide double colons and -1. So this is going to reverse the string for us. And if you do not believe me, I'm going to print that out for you. Okay. So if I print this out, you'll see that the Python program, the pseudocoder Ravina, oh my God, it's really, okay, yeah, this is pseudocoder Ravina Python programming course has been reversed. Okay, it's really hard to read though. Yeah, so this is how reverse a string in place works. It actually takes O of n time, so that is the time complexity of it, even if it is one liner. And if you are solving an algorithm question, you have to keep in mind that these reverse a string in place takes O of n time, even if it's just a one liner, that all these things happens on the background. Now let's talk about how do you concatenate two strings. So suppose you have two strings. I have, string one, which is hello, and then I have string two, which says 2024. Okay. So if I have these two strings and I want to concatenate them, I want to join them together, how do I do that? In Python, it is simply going to be like string one plus string two. So this is essentially going to concatenate your both strings. So if I go ahead and print that and execute it, you'll see that it says hello 2024. And if you see that I don't have any spaces here, so that's why it printed as hello 2024 without the space. But if I go ahead and add a small space here and I click on execute again, you'll see that it says now hello 2024 with a space. So that's how you concatenate the two strings. Sometimes it can happen that you have, a integer that you want to concatenate. So how do you do that? So suppose, for example, you have 2024, which is a integer now because I removed quotes from it. And if I do print string one plus string two, which is not a string, actually, it is a integer. So let me do this. So let me do here. Okay, so I do string and then the year, which is actually a integer, and I go ahead and execute this. What will happen? Any guesses? It is going to throw a type error. It is going to say that we cannot concatenate string with integer. So in this scenario, if you actually come across this problem where you want to concatenate string with any other type of data type, then what you can do is you can typecast it. You can do str and then round braces and parentheses. And when you do this, it is going to convert this here into a string. And this time, if you go ahead and execute this, it is going to print hello 2024. So that is something about string concatenation. String concatenation is used in a lot of ways. And as you move across as we move through the course, we will come across some string methods that can help us make our lives easier. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. All right, so we are going to learn about what are some string methods. There are a lot of string methods out there. I have tried to accumulate as many as I can, and you can very easily get this information on the internet. Where you want to do something with a string, Python will have some answer for you. Okay, so I have gotten some very widely used string methods, and I've tried to club them all together in this course. So let's go through them one by one. All right, the first thing is lower. So what does this lower do? It is going to take your string and then it is going to convert every character in the string to lower case. Okay, so for example, I have my name, right? I have my name string with me. If I go ahead and do a to lower to it, so I do print name dot lower, not to lower, lower. Um, if I do a print name dot lower and I print this, you see it actually converted everything to small case. So my P here was capital, it is converted to small. My R was capital, it is converted to small, and so on. So it is going to convert every other character in the string to a lowercase character. Now, what does strip do? Strip actually gets rid of any white spaces that you have at the start or the end of the string. Now, let's take an example and see how it works. So here I'm going to take a name and say I do Ravina, where I have, if you see, I have a white space at the start and I also have a white space at the end. And if I go ahead and print this, so in order to print this, if I print it directly, you won't be able to actually see the difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the string concatenation that we just learned and print this. So I do name and closing bracket. So so here, if you see there is no space, I'm just adding name to it. And if I go ahead and execute this, you'll see that it prints Ravina and you can see these two spaces, correct? Now, if I go ahead and do a strip, so if I go ahead and do the string name dot strip, and I now execute this, you see that those spaces are gone. Now it has gotten rid of those white spaces. Now that is strip. Now, if suppose if you want to get rid of only the white spaces on the left, what will you do? You will use L strip, which is left strip. Okay. So if I do L strip here and I execute this again, so you see that it has gotten rid of the white space at the start and it has kept the white space in the end, that is on the right side. And if you want to get rid of the white space on the right hand side or the end of the string, what you can do, you can use just R strip. So if I go ahead and execute this, you'll see that it has gotten rid of the white space at the end, and we still have white space at the start of the string. The next step we have is alpha. Now this is a boolean kind of a check, boolean kind of a method that is used in Python. So suppose if you have a string and you want to check if that string is a alphabet, how would you do it? You can use this method to test that. Okay, so suppose you have something called name and then you have Ravina in it, and I want to check if this string has only alphabets, then what I can do is I can do name. So the name of the string dot is alpha. Now this method is going to, from the name, you can see that it's kind of a Boolean. So if you try to answer is alpha, It's either yes or no. It's not going to return you something. Okay. I mean, it's going to return you, but it is not going to return you a string. It is going to return you a Boolean, which is either true or false. So if I do name dot is alpha, that should give me the result. So I'm going to wrap this in a print statement and I click execute. So if you see, this says true. Now, if I go ahead and then I change the string, I say Ravina 1, 2, 3. Now, what will happen? It will actually go and pass the string and it is going to find some digits in here. So it is going to return us false. As you can see, it now returns false. So it says it's not strictly alphabets anymore. And so is alpha is going to return false. Now we have similar examples, similar methods, which is is digit. So is alpha is going to check for the alphabets, is digit is going to check for digits, right? It's going to check for numbers. So if I go ahead and do, year, oops, and then I do 2024, 24, and I do a print, I write the string name dot is digit. Now, since you see that this particular string has all the numbers, so if I go ahead and execute this, it is returning me true. Let me go ahead and then just, comment out this one and also this one. I just want my terminal to be clean. So I'm just going to go ahead and execute it again. Okay, so you see that it returns true. Now, if I go ahead and add some alphabets to it, so suppose I add A and I click on run, you can see that now is digit is false. So it says that this string is no longer a digit, it has a alphabet in it. Okay, it can be anything, it can be a special character, alphabet, anything. So if I do add the rate and I click on run, you can see that it still returns false. Okay, so moving on to the next method is space. So we checked if it's an alphabet, we checked if it's a digit. If it's a digit, now we are going to check if it's a space. So this is a very handy method if you are trying to, find out some spaces or trying to come up with an algorithm that checks all that. So you don't have to do equal to and then the empty string. This one is going to do the job just fine. So suppose you have a name and then you have nothing in it. You have it as, just one space. So if I do a name dot is space and I go ahead and print that and run it, so you can see that, okay, let me just forget to, okay. Yeah, so I go ahead and run it again. So you can see that it returns true. What if I just remove this? I remove this single space from it. You see that it returns false. Why does it return false? Because this is actually empty. There is no space in it. So it is going to return false. And if I go ahead and add anything else, so I'm just adding junk, and you can see that it still returns false. And what if I have spaces at the start, at the end? What do you think will happen? It is still going to return false because it is going to check if the entire string is a space. If it is true, then only it will return true. Okay, so this is all about is space. Format is a widely used method. You can use that to print very, very long sentences that have a lot of plugin values, and you can use it very, very easily using this method. So you remember when we previously when we were learning about concatenation, we had a string and then we had to concatenate year to it. We had to first typecast it to string, and then we were able to print that out. Otherwise, it was giving us an error saying that you cannot concatenate string with integer. Now, what if I don't want to typecast that integer? You can use format instead of typecasting things. Okay. So how does format work? Now, for example, let's say I want to have a output where I want to say something like, hello 2024, and then I want to say by 2023. And say I have two integers. I have old year, which is which is 2023, and then I have new year. Oops, I have new year, which is the 2024. What I have to do is, if I want to have this in a pretty format, what I have to do is I'm going to have this string. So my string is gonna be hello. And then instead of printing directly 2024, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. So how do we do that? We add a curly braces and then we add index. So I add 0 and then I say by, and I do a similar thing. I add curly braces and I add index 1. Now, what does this mean? Whenever we do this, this is a string, okay? So I'm going to say this as output. So how do we go ahead with formatting? So suppose I have this string. I want to plug in 0 and 1. How do I do that? I can do that using output dot format. And then here in format, sorry, I'm going to give the values. So at 0, I wanted 2024. So I'm going to have this as new year and then this as old year. So if I put everything in a print statement, you can see that if I run it, you can see hello 2024 and bye 2023. So what does it do? It takes the output string, which is this, and then it plugs the values. So it says new year, it plugs new year at 0 and then old year at 1. If I go ahead and then I switch this, so I say old year first and new year second, and I run it now, it is going to do the opposite. It's going to assign the old year to 0. So it's going to say hello 2023 and bye 2024. So you get the gist, right? So format is actually used widely when you have a lot of, integers. You see that here we did not have to convert any integer into a string. We just use the dot format. And here you can give as many arguments as you want. I mean, and then you can just plug in the values. And you don't even have to add it to the output variable. You might as well do something like this. You can directly take the string, and instead of adding it to the value, you can have it something like this and just do dot format. If I go ahead and execute this, it is going to give me the same thing. Since I have the old year and new year reverse, it is saying hello 2023 by 2024. But you get the gist, right? So format is actually a very good method that you can use if you want to have very clear statements and then you don't want to make it very, very messy with concatenation. Okay, so let's move on to the next method. The next method that we have is find. Now, find is used in Python to find a particular, character. So, for example, if you want to find Ravina in this particular string, it is going to return you the index of the first character that you provide. So, for example, if I do name dot find, and then if I specify Ravina here, what it's going to do is it's going to look for Ravina and it's going to get the index of the first character that you provide. So here in this case is R, and then it's going to return that. So if I go ahead and print this, so you see it returns me 12. Now, how does it get 12? If I go ahead and count this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see, R is the 12th index. So it is going to return that. Now, if I go ahead and I just do sudo, and it will return me 0 because P starts from the 0th index. You don't even have to give the whole string. You can just give one character and it is still going to return you whatever the one character. So it really doesn't matter if you provide the whole string or just the first character. It is going to anyways take the first character. Moving on to the next one, we have replace. Now, this is a very good one to use because replace, if you have a long string and then you want to replace all the characters to a particular something, which is literally like, the word replace option that we have. So it is doing the same thing. Now let's take one example where I say, the message. Uh, this one is the one with two or one sentence. Now I have this big message that I don't know what it means, but we are going to take that. And then I want to replace. So what is the syntax of replace? Now dot replace is going to be something like, first we have to give a string name, and then you do a dot replace. Now replace takes three parameters. The first thing is what you want to replace. So suppose I want to replace one. What do you want to replace it with? So I want to replace one with, say, 10. And then how many times do you want to replace the one? So for example, here in my sentence, you can see that there are one, 2, and 3. I have one 3 times in my sentence. So if I choose, I can choose to modify the first two or the first one. Okay. So you can control that with replace. So if I go ahead and I don't mention anything. So if I say I don't mention anything and I go ahead and then print this, it is going to replace all the ones, and it is going to just make it 10. So if you see here, this is 10, is a 10 with 2 or 10 sentence. So you can see that it replaced all the ones with 10. Now suppose if I want to replace just the first two with 10. So what do? I can give the number of times I want to replace it. So when I write here 2 and I go ahead and execute this, you can see that this 10 is a 10 with 2 or 1 sentence. You can see this one was not affected, but it replaced the first two instances of one string. So this is how replace works. You can choose to ignore the number of times you want to do the replacement by giving the exact number of times you want to do it. Otherwise, if you decide to skip it, it is going to replace as many strings that you give in as the old string or the source string that you want to replace. Okay, so this is the replace method. Moving on to our last string method. Starts with is a method that can be used if you have a string and then you want to check if it starts with a specific substring that you want. Okay, so for example, if I have this name and then if I do pseudocoder Ravina, and I want to check if this strings starts with pseudo, what I can do is I can write the variable name of the string. This is common in all the string methods where you give in the variable name first, the string name first, which is name here, and then you do starts with, and then in the parentheses you actually give the string that you're looking for. So if you say if this matches with pseudo, does this string starts with pseudo? In this case it is true. So if I go ahead and print this, I execute it, you can see that it returns true. Now, if I go ahead and then I actually update it to Ravina, even if Ravina is part of this string, it is not the start of the string. So if I go ahead and execute this, it is going to return me false. So that's what the starts with method does. It actually if you can give it any, you can give it any string, or you can give it just one character or anything. It is going to match it with the string that you are comparing it with, and it is going to either return true or false. So I hope this explanation was helpful. I hope strings are clear now. We are going to move on to the next data structures in the next chapter. So keep watching. I hope you like this video. Give it a thumbs up, comment below, and subscribe to my channel if you want to get updates of the Python programming course. The chapters are gonna come more frequently now, and I'm working on getting them live as soon as possible. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture.